Hello and welcome to our Saturdays with Tara Hangout on Air. I'm Mary Beth at the Law of Attraction Club, and we're on the web at the loaclub.com. On these hangouts, we collaborate with our friends Tara. This hangout is the summary of our theme for the week and continues on our member conference line with Q&A. Today's topic: whose world are you talking about? The advanced class on law of attraction. You can get invites to our open calls, which we offer periodically, and our powerful free letting go process by going to the loaclub.com. So now we're going to hand the call over to Robin, who will be bringing through Tara. Over to you guys.
Welcome back to our discussions. Over the last week, we've been discussing with you the true nature of your world. And this week, we'd like to go into this subject in a little more detail. We know that for you seemingly human space-time entities, it can be difficult for you to get your heads around the idea that that context of yours is an illusion. That what seems to be a physical and therefore very real external world is actually a movie playing in your mind. So let's look at that together and see if we can open things up a bit for you. For 18 years before the formation of this community, this one spent more than 2,000 hours listening to Abraham channeled by Esther Hicks. And yet, questions remained. Then he created a more accessible source of answers through us, and thus began at a much more fundamental level what felt to him like an explosion of understanding who he was and why he was here. From that came this definition of the law of attraction. You attract into your experience, moment by moment, wanted or unwanted, unique to you, your own virtual reality. And the versions of everything and everyone in that virtual reality are a match to the sum of your conscious and superconscious chosen beliefs and expectations. By law of attraction, there's nothing you cannot be, do, or have. So you can have your world be any way you want it to be. And so, by the way, can everybody else. And many of them want a very different world than you do. So here's the paradox. If you all exist together in one shared world, the law of attraction makes no sense at all. And many questions about the nature of things cannot be satisfactorily answered. We're going to spend some time on this and show you clearly what we mean by that. We're going to show you on a whole new level a more fundamental way of answering those questions. Last week's discussion focused on 10 things you might have upside down. And number 9 was, science is creating, not discovering. Then the question arose, so if there's a group of scientists seeking a cure for cancer and they discover something, are they creating that or learning more about what already exists? Are you beginning to see that before any question like that can be answered, you have to decide from whose perspective you're asking it? From the perspective of the scientists who probably know not much about the law of attraction, they might think they are discovering, but as always, they are each individually creating. If they focus on obstacles and dwell on the idea that a cure is difficult, then it will be. But if they allow their ideas to flow and they focus with optimism, then they will, unknowingly, create a new set of facts and a cure. From your perspective, if there is cancer in the world, it is because you believe, you know, there is. If there are scientists working on breakthrough discoveries and potential cures, it's because you know they are. Perhaps you think it possible or even probable that a cure will eventually be found, and so your world will line up with that. Nothing exists in your world except what you know to exist, or what you believe may possibly exist. Before somebody discovered DNA and the human genome, these things did not exist. If they had discovered, equals created, some other plausible explanation of the building blocks of life, and you had heard about that and chosen to believe that story, and why not, then there would be no DNA in your world. At this one point, this one was listening to some from a Hay House World Summit featuring many of the well-known gurus of spiritual enlightenment. In one of those, Reed Tracy, president of Hay House, interviewed Esther Hicks, and through Esther, Abraham. Reed spoke of a young boy, recently killed in a school shooting, who seemed to have had a premonition about what was going to happen that day at school. And Reed's question to Abraham was, can people know what's going to happen before it happens? In answering, Abraham spoke about that shooting incident and also used the example of Jerry Hicks' recent transition, in part as follows. Esther is certain that Jerry did not know that he had a physical condition that was going to be the avenue through which he made his very fast transition. He always said he wanted to be happy, healthy, happy, healthy, happy, healthy, dead. And it was pretty much like that. Healthy all of his life and then a few months of transition. And so Esther is certain that he did not know. And yet there were so many things that he was doing in preparation for that, that after it happened, she understood that on some level, that's the way she words it, on some level she knows he knew. Now, if she had known that he knew and had confronted him about it, he very likely would not have said anything. Reed's question is what we would call a one-world question. And before any question like that can be answered, you have to decide from whose perspective you're asking. Let's start by looking at Jerry's transition from Jerry's perspective. From the answer above, you might get the impression that something external to Jerry had decided it was time for him to go. But each of you, of course, makes your own decision about transitioning. So at some level, Jerry decided. The next question therefore becomes, is it not possible to know what decisions you have made at all levels? And as we have said many times, yes, it is. You can surface any part of that subconscious expectation fabric into conscious awareness. Firstly, look around you. Everything you're experiencing in every realm is an exact match to the belief choices you have made. Secondly, you can go within. If you want to know what you are now creating on any particular subject, ask yourself quietly, without fear and without judgment, what you really truly expect to happen in relation to that subject. Of course, if you choose to believe you cannot know, you'll be right, because each belief choice comes with its own life support system, by which we mean that your world will conform, as always, to the choices you have made. But we say you can know, and if the answer does not feel good, then change the belief that sits beneath it and choose to expect something different. Now let's look at the question from Esther's perspective. The answers are the same. Can it be that Jerry, or some entity, can assert things into Esther's experience to which she is not a vibrational match? And the answer to that, of course, is no. So at some level, Esther's vibration was a match to Jerry's transition. Not like now was the time, but there was worry about it, which created the possibility of it. And then what showed up was a match to her at that time. Esther used words like, not so soon, and she held Jerry as invincible. But in this, as in all things, the law of attraction is absolute. From Jerry's perspective, he created it. From Esther's perspective, it was her creation. Now let's look at Reed's question from his perspective. If he had asked for a prediction of his future, the Abraham response would have been, as always, we cannot tell you that because you are in charge of that and you are free to make a new choice in the next second and the next second. All possibilities exist. You will choose which version of you to inhabit, and your world will always be a match to that version of you. What he asked was, can people know what's going to happen before it happens? The question was not really answered because the only possible answer is, you tell us. Reed, like all of us, creates his own personal virtual reality. And even though it sounds like he is asking about something external and pre-existing, he is creating it all. And so it is that he alone can answer that question. Now we get to the important perspective, yours. Are you asking yourself how it is that your gurus can be fallible? Well, you're creating your gurus, so you will have to answer that. We would say, of course, that all channeling is a collaboration between the channeler and the channeled entity, and is always going to be colored by the beliefs and expectation of both parties. Back at the formation of this club, Nina, the first conduit to us, began pushing at this one numerous websites of people channeling. The stories were often incredibly complex and contradictory, yet they all seemed genuine. This one was perplexed and asked us, how can this be? And we explained once again that by law of attraction, everyone creates worlds that match their chosen beliefs, physical and non-physical. So then the particular mission of this community became to get what lies beneath, what is absolute and independent of any chosen story. And that continues to be our intent here. As to what to believe, simply choose always that which feels good. Ignore the rest. But here's the important concept we want you to understand. We need to step back from stories about channels and their biases and once again say, you tell us. Because everything in your personal, particular virtual reality is yours to choose. So the particular versions of Esther and Jerry, and in fact Abraham and this one and us and Rachel and Mary Beth that you experience will be a match to you, because it is you who is writing the screenplay for this movie of yours. Therefore, you will not much hear us making general statements about the world, like, for example, this is the time of awakening when more people will live in joy. You might find it inspiring to hear those words, but there's a downside. They carry within them a reinforcement of the idea that you are not the sole creator of your reality, that there's a shared world out there that is somehow shaped by collective decision. But there is no shared world. There is only your world. Nobody can, No entity can, and we cannot, speak for your world. We would say instead that if you have a particular vision for the world that feels good to you, where perhaps there's a completely different sort of education system, where everybody believes as much in the law of attraction as in the law of gravity, where more and more people are living in the joyful realization of the power within them, then choose to inhabit that version. Choose to expect nothing less. And that is the glorious version of reality you will thereby step into. We would say there is indeed nothing you cannot be, do, or have, and there is nothing you cannot change. We say choose always to live from within the highly personal question, what do I want now? Think back about your day today. What decisions have you made already? Perhaps you decided to get up early to do something, and now you're living in the version of the movie that flows from that. It seems like this is the only version, but there's another equally valid version of you that got up at the usual time, and another equally valid version of you that slept late. In both of those alternate versions, there's an equally real, alive, thinking, vibrating version of you, thinking that you are in the only version of reality. There is no one world. There is only your world, and there are infinite versions of that. At the end of that Reed interview came these Abraham words. You come out of eagerness to be deliberate creators, to explore the contrast, to discover what you personally prefer, to discover your own power of flowing the energy, to hook into this energy that creates worlds, to let the energy that creates worlds to flow through your fingertips towards your creative endeavors, to uplift others, to find more contrast, to launch more rockets, to recognize you are not yet in alignment, to have the thrill of coming into alignment, and yes, to experience the manifestation of your desire. But it is the journey to those manifestations that rings your bells. It's about the journey, you see. To which we say, Amen. This is the Abraham that inspired this one to listen in for thousands of hours. This is the Abraham that put him on the path to where he is now. This was to him the first storyless version of the truth of it all, and he is deeply appreciative of the phenomenal teachings that they have brought forth and continue to bring forth. Over time, he and those of you in this community have moved beyond the shadow of those teachings and have become a new voice with new clarity. And so we have come to an understanding of multiple versions of reality and the truth about who and what you are. And all of this is extremely useful if you're at all curious about these things. And why not? But beyond your curiosity, we go there because often there's simply no good answer to questions like Reed was asking, or the ones that you ask, without understanding the basic facts of your existence. But ultimately, those words of Abraham describe the important stuff. So let's finish with this. Enjoy the journey. Know yourselves to be unlimited. And above all, have fun with all of this. We are enjoying ourselves more than words can say as we dance with you through this adventure. And now we move to our longer discussion and your questions.
This Hangout on Air was the summary of our theme for the week. We do 3 live calls a week with questions and answers from our members on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can become a member by going to the loaclub.com/join. So now for our members, our longer discussion continues with Q&A.